Hello everyone and welcome to Tuesday's reading lesson. So yesterday in reading we had a look at chapter 7 and the events that happened in chapter 7, and today we are going to carry on looking at some different parts of chapter 7 and answering some questions. So as a little starter, in the top of your book, can you summarise the past and present day stories of chapter 7. So maybe split your page into two and do past on one side, present on the other. And what stories do we find out or listen to in chapter 7? So pause the video and have a go at reminding yourself. Okay, so today we are going to look at the beginning of chapter 7. So you will need to re-listen just to the beginning up to the first flashback. So up to just before we hear about Stanley's great-great-grandfather and what he was named. So it's only about 3 pages. So if you pause the video and then go back and just listen up to that part before we're introduced to the great-great-grandfather. Okay, so let's just double check that we know what some of the vocabulary is. So it talks in this chapter about a canteen, which is what we would call a water bottle. And there are some pictures of the types of canteens that they might have had. And then we've got the different parts of a shovel. So we know what a shovel is, hopefully. So there's a picture of one. You use it to dig up things. You might have one in your garden. And it's got a metal blade on the end and a wooden shaft, so like a wooden stick for the handle. Then have a look at some of these words. So we've got defective, assigned, unearthed, and perimeter. Have a think, pause the video and have a think. Do you know what any of these words mean? Okay, so the word defective means that something doesn't work properly. So if something is defective, it doesn't work, it's broken, it doesn't do what it's supposed to. If you're assigned something, you're given work to do. So you might be assigned some homework, they are assigned to dig holes. If you unearth something, you discover something, usually something bad or negative, but it could be positive. So you discover something. And the perimeter is the outer edge of an area of land, so the outside of it. So the first thing I want you to do is try and put each of these words into your own sentence. So pause the video now and see if you can do that. Okay. So now what we're going to do is have a go at answering some questions on the bit that we have looked up to, so the bit before the first flashback. You can re-listen to it as you go if you need reminding of bits and pieces as you get to the questions. So we've got a retrieve question, which means that the answer will definitely be in that. It's not hidden at all. Prediction, what you think might happen based on what you've read so far. So not just a random thought, but using evidence of what we've read so far. And 2, inference, which is a little bit trickier, but it gives you the quote from the book and you need to work out what it suggests. So the answer isn't exactly in there, but you're using your inference skills to sort of guess at what it's hinted at, what things you can take from that. So pause the video and have a go at these questions. They're also on the website if you would like to print them off and stick them in. And then come back for the answers. Okay, so question number 1. What happens if the boys find something when they're digging? And it tells you that the boys should report it to either Mr. Pendanski or Mr. Sir when they come around with the water truck. So give yourself a tick if you got that one. For the second one, it says, what sort of things do you think the boys might find when digging here? And because it's a prediction, you could have lots of different answers. Now, he's not going to find an alien or a rocket underneath the sand, but think about things related to what we've heard so far What is there likely to be buried in the sand that they might find? It might be things like fossils. It might be things like things that belong to boys before that they've dropped in the hole. It could be things from years and years ago when the camp wasn't a camp, okay? But think about what is realistic for that one. And then number 3, so inference. So he glanced at Zero about 15 feet away, who scooped out a shovel full of dirt and dumped it on a pile that was already almost a foot tall. And then what does this quote suggest about Zero, and what assumptions can we make? So what things can we assume about him? Now we know, having a look at the quote, so he glanced at Zero. That's not really going to tell us anything about Zero other than that he's about 15 feet away. However, he scooped out a shovel full of dirt. Now, if you scoop something out, that suggests that you aren't struggling, that you do it easily, like you scoop out ice cream, you scoop out a lot of things. It doesn't say that he struggled when he was scooping it out. It just says that he scooped out a shovel full of dirt. So he's stuck his shovel right in and he's got a whole shovel full of dirt already. So if you think about when you dig holes or you dig something, if the floor's really hard, or even think about scooping out ice cream, if it's really hard, when you put your spoon or your scoop in, you usually only get a little bit. It sort of breaks off, doesn't it? So to get a whole shovel full of dirt suggests that he's actually really good at it, doesn't it? Because he's got it straight away. He dumped it on a pile. What does that suggest if you just dump something? So he didn't place it, he dumped it on. And his pile was almost a foot tall already. And this is before Stanley's even managed to start digging or get any dirt. So those are the key things that can help us answer the questions. So the fact that he has already got a pile that's a foot tall and that he's scooping it out, he's scooping shovelfuls out at a time, so he's not struggling, he's just dumping it on. So he's a fast worker, he's really strong because he's scooping the dirt out with ease, and the dirt and the ground is obviously really hard, and his pile's already really tall. So we can assume from that knowledge that maybe Zero's been at the camp for a while, because he's used to it. So Stanley hasn't been there for a while, so he is struggling and he hasn't started. But Zero has got into it, done it really well. So we can assume that maybe he's been there for a while. He's not new. He's used to digging holes. We could assume that he's really strong because he's not struggling with it. We can assume that he's got used to the idea of digging holes. So there could be quite a few different answers for that. But as long as you've used the evidence, so it doesn't suggest that he's struggling. It doesn't suggest that he's weak. It suggests that he's good at it. Okay, and then the final question then. So X-Ray has his own special shovel, which is shorter than the others. What does this suggest about his character, and what kind of character do you think he is? Again, having a look at the quote that we've been given. So they call it a special shovel. So the use of the word special is really important here. And it says that it's shorter than all the others. So to answer this question, you need to think about, why would you have a shorter shovel? Okay, if I was to give a shovel to everyone in year 6, why would some people need shorter shovels than others? And the answer to that is probably because of your height, really. If I gave everybody a giant shovel and you were quite short, you wouldn't be able to dig anything because the shovel would be too big. So the fact that it's shorter suggests to us that maybe he is a lot shorter than the other boys because they've had to give him a different shovel. Okay, so a normal shovel, a regular size shovel that all the other boys have got, is obviously going to be too big for him. So that might suggest that he's shorter than the other boys. And about the kind of character he is, now it specifically says he's got his own special shovel. And the word special is really important in this because it gives us some clues. Because that might suggest that X-Ray is special. It might suggest that he's respected by the counsellors at the camp because they've gone out of their way to provide something different for him, to give him a special shovel. If they didn't care about him, if they weren't really bothered, then they just give him a shovel that was far too big for him and sort of tell him to get on with it. Okay, so he has been given something different, and the counsellors have gone out their way to provide that. So that might suggest that he's a special character, or he's well respected or well liked, or that the counsellors want to do something for him. Okay, so give yourself a mark out of 4 if you've got a similar answers, and give yourself a mark out of 4, and then pop back here tomorrow to carry on with the reading. So good job today.